What would you do if you knew there was something wrong in your neighborhood, but no one truly listens to you? What would you do if people disappeared on your side of the island and everyone called it normal? In Prigionia, there is a place where reports go unanswered, where patrol cars slow down but they never stop, where silence isn't suspicious, it's expected. We're talking about the south side of the island. More specifically, on the Southview district. And for years, Southview taught its residents the same lesson. Don't ask questions, don't make noise, and don't expect help to come. Because by the time authorities finally entered a house on the south side of the island, it was already too late. Donald Ewell was already dead, and the people who could have told them everything had already been erased.
Once again, L1 to Woodstock Ambulance Duty Crew, respond for net all.
This video presents a fictional narrative. All people, locations, events, and cases depicted are works of fiction, created for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real individuals or real events is purely coincidental. This content is intended as fictional entertainment only. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Here we have a space where we talk about cases that have happened in Prigionia, specifically for now, because that's where I'm from, so we're going to be focusing on that for now. Maybe we can get into some other cases around the world, but for now we're going to stick to Prigionia. I am terribly sick, so I am so sorry if my voice sounds kind of strange. It's very difficult for me to talk right now, so please forgive me if you cannot understand me. But well, let's just get started with this case, because this case is going to be about the Southview Killer. Let's talk a little bit about Southview in general. The south side of Prigionia is like stepping into a different world the moment you cross that old rusted bridge. Locals call it crossing the line. One side gleaming with tourist hotels, manicured beaches, and working streetlights. The other swallowed by fog, neglect, and something heavier in the air. If you're a visitor to the island, the guidebooks and every cab driver will warn you, do not go south of the bridge. It's not just advice, it's survival instinct at this point. Southview is the district closest to the bridge, the gateway to the south, so no one really wants to enter. Official police presence almost non-existent. Law here is enforced by whoever has the most guns or the most fear. Poverty is extreme and visible, yet there's a strange, stubborn life to it. Street vendors hawk fried plantains from carts, kids play soccer in flooded lots, music blasts from cracked speakers at night, but underneath runs a current of danger. Disappearances aren't rare, questions aren't asked, and outsiders are noticed immediately. Let me just give you a little bit of a reminder and a little bit of a warning that this case is pretty violent. It gets pretty gruesome and it involves young victims. So if you are uncomfortable with this type of topics, then feel free to have a rest day today. But proceed with caution if you're going to remain in this video. It started with a girl from the Southview School for Girls She disappeared one day. She never came back home after school. We don't know the name of this girl because she was underage at the time, so the parents want to keep the privacy. So we're going to call her Lila. Okay, so Lila one day went to school. She had her classes, she saw her teachers, her friends, everything. She went to school like any other day. And then, when it was time to get back home, she never made it. The parents started calling first the school because they weren't even sure if she had made it to school. But the teachers confirmed that she had spent the day there, that nothing happened, and that she left. Then they started calling the friends, Lila's friends, to see if by any chance she was with them, or if they'd seen her, or if they had walked her to the bus stop or something, anything. But the friends did not. The friends said goodbye to her and they went their separate ways. They didn't know where she was, and the last place she was seen was at school. Days go by, and then police finds a body near the mangroves. And this body was peculiar, to say the least. They found the girl, a girl with black hair and extremely pale skin, wearing a mask. She was wearing a porcelain mask, like a doll. Little fast forward, another body shows up, exactly the same. A girl, black hair, extremely pale skin, wearing the same Southview school uniform and the same mask. Days go by, more people, more girls start going missing. And now it's not just girls from the Southview school. Also tourists had been reported missing. People from the north side of the island who were wandering around the south, they had also been reported missing. Specifically girls, specifically young girls. And the worst part is that the bodies that kept showing up days later looked eerily similar. All of them. They were all the same. Black hair, pale skin, the same uniform, the same mask. The problem was that the people that had gone missing, the girls that had gone missing, did not match that description, and they could not explain why the bodies were found like that until they discovered who was behind these gruesome murders. Let me introduce you to Donald Ewell. Donald Ewell wasn't born a monster. Or was he? Actually, Ewell's story starts far from Prigionia's shores, in a foggy coastal town in northern England back in 1969. His parents, Harold and Edith Ewell, scraped by in a modest row house amid the industrial gloom. A few family snapshots show young Donald playing with his toys, a seemingly normal kid. But tragedy struck in 1976 when he was just 7 years old. A freak gas explosion ripped through their home one winter night, killing both parents instantly. Official reports called it accidental, but town whispers hinted at darker truths. But Donald emerged unscathed, clutching a melted doll, his only toy left, with burns scarring his hands. Orphaned and alone, he was shipped off to the Garnet Institute for Orphans, a sprawling manor founded in 1890 by the enigmatic Zacharias Serebjan. Serebjan, born to Wales in 1855, claimed a mission after a shipwreck to rescue lost souls through strict discipline and moral reformation. But this legacy reeked of scandal, embezzlement accusations, and experimental therapies like isolation in hidden basements. The Institute's creaky halls and overgrown gardens hid horrors like banished wards, falsified records, and an eerie legacy of purity. Donald's years at Garnet were a blur of isolation. Arriving mute and wide-eyed, he hoarded broken toys in the dusty playroom, repairing them with string and glue, whispering like they were family. Punishments were brutal, cold showers for odd behavior, and he formed no bonds, often staring blankly during drills or sneaking to the attic for antique porcelain dolls, painting their faces obsessively. Staff notes labeled him troubled but harmless, but one incident chills. He broke another boy's arm over a toy, muttering that it belonged to his sister, echoing a sibling he never had. When Garnet shuttered abruptly in 1984 amid abuse investigations, the underage kids, including Donald, were relocated to Silver Oak, a mental institution on Prigionia, also established by Serebjan as an extension for the troubled. It was built as a temporary stopgap until a new orphanage could be built, but that day never came. Donald spent his formative years there as a patient, trapped in a system that blurred care and confinement. Sterile wards, experimental shock treatments, heavy sedatives, and group sessions where he mumbled about perfect dolls. So well, like I told you, Donald was there like a patient, and he was treated like a patient. He was no longer a kid who had to take classes and had to study and had to live his own life. No, he was treated like a patient. So that makes me wonder, when he got to Silver Oak, was he already sick in the head? Or did they made him sick? Because there was isolation treatments and some very skeptical treatments that they performed on their patients to try and cure them. So I can't help but wonder if it was their fault that he became the Southview Killer. I'm not sure, because we don't know much about this time that he spent there, or him at the Garnet Institute in general. We don't know how he was before he got to Silver Oak and after well, we do know what happens after Silver Oak, but we don't know what happens during Silver Oak. So I am not sure if Donald was born a monster or if he was made a monster. And then disaster struck yet again. We are all very familiar with the fire that happened at Silver Oak. It was a day that the locals are never going to forget, because it was so bizarre and it was so terrible. It was terrible. You could smell. It smelled for days. It smelled of burnt flesh and burnt hair, and it was disgusting. It was absolutely horrible. The whole entire island smelled like rotten flesh for days, for weeks. So I don't think that we could ever forget about that fire. I still don't understand how such a big place could catch fire so quickly. And it spread so quickly too, to the point where there was nothing anyone could do. There were some patients that were able to escape that day. Luckily so for them, because the ones that couldn't escape died in the fire. But not so lucky for the rest of us, because they still haven't been caught. And they are all mentally ill, so we don't know what we're up against. And this type of things happen because the Prigionia police doesn't do anything about it. They're so infuriating. Like, honestly, they should have caught these people that left the hospital, that escaped, and they should have gotten them to another hospital so they could get proper treatment, instead of just letting them loose on the island, not knowing who they are, not warning the people, not doing anything about it. And I understand that it's hard and it's difficult. It's very difficult to track these people down and everything. But come on. You gotta be doing something. Lozano, what the hell are you doing? Because I don't see you doing much. I just don't see you doing much. You're more worried and you're more concerned about other cases, and you completely disregard the safety of everyone else who lives here. Because let me just remind you, the De Rosa, the Soldanos, the Hackshires, they are not the only ones who live on the island. We live on the island as well, and we are not being protected because the police department doesn't do anything. So sorry about that tantrum, but I'm just so pissed because all of these horrible, terrible things that have happened in Prigionia could have been stopped if people cared. But people don't care, and that's the problem. Many other patients were able to escape from the fire amid the chaos and everything. Donald Ewell was able to hide on the south side of the island. He didn't have any money, so it's not like he could just buy a house or rent or anything. So instead, he built his own place, and he built it with whatever materials he could find. And this is what his house looked like. It looked like it could collapse any second. His neighbors had complained about him to the police. And I'm not gonna get mad again, but what did the police do? Nothing. They were complaining that it always smelled really foul when you walk through his place, and that they could hear every now and then screams, and that they were seeing a lot of questionable things that they did report to the police. Now, I have to admit that some of this stuff was reported to the police immediately, but some of it wasn't. simply and merely because the neighbors already knew that it didn't matter how many times they called the police department or how many reports they made, the police never came anyway. So it came a time that the neighbors just didn't report it anymore because they already knew that nothing was going to be made. So yeah, they stopped complaining about it. Now let's focus on the crimes and the victims. I am going to make a little bit of a summary for those of you guys who don't want to get into the details. Let me just warn you, the details are pretty horrid, to be honest. This man, he did terrible things to these victims. So let me just give you a little bit of summary of what happened. Just like few important pieces that you need to know in order to understand the overall case. The victims were pretty young. They were aged 12 to 18, and well, you already know, he would put masks on them and the Southview school uniform, but he also made sure that the police or anybody who found their bodies wouldn't be able to identify them. Now, you can skip to this part of the video if you want to skip the details, and if you want to listen to the details, then let's keep going. Between 2015 and 2025, all targeted girls aged 12 to 18, vulnerable runaways, locals from fractured families, and even tourists drawn to Prigionia. Once captive, all began his ritual. He would dye their hair jet black, bleach their skin to a ghostly pallor, and force-feed them a meager diet. He would also hide his victims behind a porcelain mask, hand-painted with eerie makeup, thin black eyebrows, rosy cheeks, plump lips, and vacant eyes. He would stuff claws or rags into their mouths to silence them, then glue the mask on with industrial adhesive. Breathing became torture, and many suffocated slowly. But here's the detail that twists the knife. Every victim was found dressed in the Southview School for Girls uniform. A crisp white blouse, a plate blue skirt, white socks, black shoes, and a blue tie. Even though not all of the victims were students there, some weren't from Prigionia at all. The bodies were discovered in two haunting ways. Many were dumped near the mangroves, posed like discarded dolls in the mud. But during the final raid, authorities uncovered more horrors in Ewell's basement. There were additional bodies hidden amongst the shelves of his store collection, some alongside the living victims who were still chained, awaiting their transformation. All drained their blood, rumored to be sold on the black market or to shady clinics. He would burn off their fingerprints as well, peel their tattoos, remove their teeth and fingernails, and alter their appearances so drastically that identification of the bodies was near impossible. The glued masks fused with the decaying skin, making the removal destructive, ripping away any last hope of recognition. The problem is that not all of the victims were students there. Some weren't from Prigionia at all. So that raises other questions, like how did he get his hands on these uniforms? Was he a janitor at the school, a groundskeeper, or did he work at the school? I couldn't find that. I couldn't find any register of any employee at that school with the same name. He could have maybe faked a different name or something, but I think the school would have said something by now, and they are pretty shocked because they don't know how he was able to get these uniforms. So if he was not working at the school, then was he working with somebody else? Was somebody else who was actually working at the school helping him somehow? This man is very, very meticulous, so I don't think that this was a random thing, that he just wanted to dress all of his victims up with that uniform just randomly? No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I don't think it was a coincidence at all. And while I was doing my research, I found the connection. I think I found the connection. Remember that Donald Ewell was from the Garnet Institute. Let me show you a picture of the Garnet uniform back in the day. And I am going to put the picture of the Southview school uniform. Now tell me you don't see how similar they are. I think that is the connection there. I think that is exactly why this man wanted to dress them up with that specific uniform, because I think it looks eerily similar to the Garnet Institute uniform. And I don't know, maybe that brought back memories. Maybe it was some twisted fantasy. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if he was sick in the head back in the day, like back when he was just a kid and he was at the Garnet Institute, or if he became mentally ill afterwards and now he is trying to recreate something from his past where he felt safe. I have no idea. I have no idea what this man was trying to do with that uniform. I just know that the connection is with the Garnet Institute uniform because they look almost identical. Okay, now we are going to get to the police investigation and the handling of this case, or lack thereof. This part is going to be extremely short because police isn't doing a single damn thing but screwing it up. They have delayed warrants, they have lost reports, they have mishandled the evidence, and they've been trying to keep news reports out of it. They have arrested journalists that show up to the crime scene looking for answers, looking for anything, because the police isn't giving us anything. So we have to go out there and investigate for ourselves? I don't think so. It doesn't work like that. My team has been trying to get an interview with Lozano ever since we heard about this case, and ever since we heard that the police had caught the Southview Killer. We've been trying to get an interview from him, to get anything from him, but this man just won't budge. He won't say anything, he won't comment on anything, he won't make a statement, he's not doing anything. This man is just saying and repeating over and over and over again that this is an ongoing investigation and that he is not able to make any comments on it until they finish the investigation, until they conclude. But like nothing, and we have to find out how terribly you were taking care of this case by the news reports, by people like me who are just talking on the internet, who have done more research than you have. Like, is that really how the sheriff is taking cases now? Like, come on. Like, come on, man. I don't think that he is ever going to tell us exactly what happened. I think that he is going to do what he normally does, and he is going to wait in his office, on his chair, for everything to die down. But I don't think this time we are going to let that happen, because this was horrible, and girls were killed and girls were missing for months, and you wouldn't do anything about it, and you were not even planning to do anything about it. You're just waiting for the rumors to die down and for everyone to go back to their businesses and never question you again. And let me just tell you, I am not gonna let you do that. I am gonna keep trying to get the truth out of you. Now, we've gotten to the brutal end of this case. Donald Ewell is not going to face trial. He is not going to face the consequences of his actions because he was butchered. He was dead when the police got there. And the worst part is that we don't know who did it. The police refuses to say who was responsible for this. But there are several things that can kind of tell us what could have happened. And I know there are a lot of what ifs in there, but bear with me. Theory number 1 is vengeance. Maybe a family member found out who the Southview Killer was. Maybe he put everything together and he snapped in grief, and well, they decided that they were not going to wait for the police anymore to do something about it, and they did it themselves. Theory number 2 is silencing. Maybe someone knew that the police was onto Donald. Maybe they didn't want their dirty little business to be known. Maybe there was something that they wanted to hide and Donald was involved, because like I said, there are still so many things that we don't know about, like the blood, for example. We don't know where the blood went to, or the teeth. So maybe someone knew that they were about to catch him, and instead of letting him talk, they took him off the equation, and that's just it. It dies with him and whoever else was involved. But since we have no clues to what else was going on or who else was involved, then maybe it all dies with Donald. And the theory number 3 is just Southside chaos. And this is not my favorite one, to be honest, because I don't think that this can just be pushed aside as violence on the south side of the island. I do not feel like this was something normal that just happens here. I think this was something much more dark and much more sinister, and something that maybe was tied to other people, something that maybe was tied to bigger organizations. I don't think that this was just a deranged man doing what a deranged man would do if they had the freedom to do it. I think this ran deeper than that, and that is why I don't like this theory that much, because I cannot shove this aside as just random violence, as just, oh, this is what tends to happen on Southview. No. But there are a lot of people who believe that this is just what is done in the south side of the island. So I have to mention that theory as well. Now, there are some strange things that happened the day they found Donald. And the biggest thing that just doesn't add up is that the DeRosa brothers were there. And now, if you're not familiar with the DeRosa brothers, then you must have been living under a rock, or you're not from Prigionia. But if you're from Prigionia and you don't know who these brothers are, then where have you been? Where have you been? We all know what this family does, what this family sells. We all know. We all just pretend like we don't, but we all know. We all know just how powerful this family is. And we know that there was a tragic accident in which Maya and Christopher DeRosa passed away. That was a little bit suspicious too. But now the kids are orphaned, and the kids take care of the business. And we all know who Sander and Raymond are. They are pretty infamous because they're pretty violent, and they tend to be the people who shoot first and ask questions later. These two were there minutes before the police arrived, and they were seen taken away from the scene. One of them was in a police car, and the other one was in an ambulance. They have nothing to do in Southview. They have nothing to do in Donald Ewell's home. Or at least I wouldn't think so. But what if they did? That is the thing that I am talking about. What if this man had more connections that we know of? Or was this related to Alice? We know, wink wink, we know that Alice has been missing for a while now, and police hasn't really gotten to her whereabouts. But we know that Sander, if he wants something done, he gets it done. And we know that his methods aren't exactly humane. Could it be? I'm just putting this out there. I'm not saying that this is what happened. This is just an assumption. But could it be that Alice was one of the victims, one of the deceased victims of this killer, and Sander knew. And that's why they were there, to confront this man. But they found her sister dead. And that made him snap. And maybe he was the one who ended up killing Donald. But the police didn't arrest him. Not really. He was taken away in a police car. He was driven to the station. But we don't know what happened afterwards. We don't know if they interviewed him. We don't know if they took his statement. We don't know what happened. We just know that he was let go shortly after. And Raymond was never brought to the police station to begin with. He was in that ambulance, and they took him to a hospital, but he wasn't injured at all. He was taken to the morgue, but he wasn't dead either. So I can't help but wonder that maybe the DeRosa ended up finding the sister in the end, just not how they expected to find her. And I have to say that this is extremely, extremely sad, because I cannot even imagine how terrible it must feel to lose your family members. And this family, the DeRosas, they've already lost their parents. And now I am afraid that they've lost the sister too. So I don't know. I'm not sure if it was Sander. I'm not sure if it was somebody else. I'm not sure if Alice was one of the victims. I don't know much of anything. I can only assume. And that is where I leave you today. If you live in Southview or the south side of the island, feel free to comment. Feel free to tell us what the situation really is like over there. If you heard weird things going on, if you lived somewhere near where this man was, please let us know. And to everyone else, I ask you, do you believe Donald Ewell was killed to stop him from talking? Or was it because someone just couldn't wait for justice? Or the other possibility, do you think this was just random violence? Please leave your comments down below about this whole case. I know it's messy, and I know that it leaves more questions than it answers, but feel free to theorize with me on the comments below. I just hope that you stay safe. I hope that you stay on the right side of the island, whether that is the north or the south, you get to decide that. I just hope that you are never harmed in Prigionia.